Hypixel Party Games is one of Minecraft's most iconic minigames, located in the arcade lobby. Many know party games as it is today, 8 players competing in 8 random minigames to try and get the most stars and win. But it wasn't always this way. Did you know that party games used to be 3 separate games? The story of party games begins 10 years ago, with the birth of the arcade lobby. The arcade games lobby was released on May 27th, 2014 to VIP users. It originally came with 3 games, Creeper Attack, Ender Spleef, and Party Games 1. Party Games 1 originally had 8 players competing in a set of 9 minigames, including pig fishing, minecart racing, along with boat racing and punch the bats, which no longer exist today. The concept is simple. For each minigame, the winner gets 3 stars, second place gets 2 stars, and third place gets 1 star. The winner of party games is the person with the most stars at the end of the game. So yes, 27-star games were possible back then. Originally, pig fishing was quite different from the pig fishing that we know today. Back then, players had 90 seconds to get as many pigs as possible. But unlike today, pig fishing was capped at 10 pigs, and the game would end as soon as someone reached that score. Just a few weeks after the release of PG1, on June 18th, Party Games 2 was released with 10 minigames and double the players. You could get up to 30 stars, but you would be competing in a lobby of 16 players. Some of the minigames in Party Games 2 included Bombardment, Chicken Rings, Lab Escape, and the now deleted Horse Race game. Fun fact, you can still access the Horse Race map in Party Games by flying over the void in the RPG-16 minigame. You just have to fly west for about 40 seconds, and you'll land at the old Horse Race map. This doesn't have any practical use, but it's just a fun thing to do if you're ever feeling nostalgic. Anyways, the arcade lobby was finally released to the public on June 29th, just 11 days after the release of Party Games 2. Hypixel wouldn't release another Party Games until 2015. On October 7th, 2015, Hypixel released another party game, Party Games 3. Party Games 3 featured 12 players and 8 new minigames, including Jigsaw Rush, Hole in the Wall, and 2 new parkour games. Hole in the Wall has a unique place in arcade and party games history. As the name suggests, players had to match the shape of a hole, in the wall, getting more points the more accurate they were. This minigame had issues though. The walls were very slow, people would reach the point cap really easily, and ties weren't settled. So the winner was sometimes random, which is a big flaw. But Hole in the Wall would soon get a massive upgrade. Following the release of PG3, Hypixel noticed a huge hype surrounding Hole in the Wall. So much so, that 3 weeks later, Hypixel released Hole in the Wall as its own arcade game. And on October 26, 2015, Hole in the Wall was born. On that same day, the PG3 version of Hole in the Wall was changed to have less walls, which reduced the max point cap from 56 points to 33 points. For some reason, the original version of Hole in the Wall remained as a Party Games 3 minigame for another 4 years, with no improvements whatsoever. However, not all minigames would remain in Party Games. As newer versions were getting released, Hypixel had to adapt to the changes and update the server. The release of Minecraft 1.9 was especially brutal, as it completely changed PvP in boats. As a result of this update, Hypixel had to remove boat racing. Boat racing was a simple game. It was a race on a water slide with moving obstacles. If you hit the moving logs, you would be sent back to the start. As soon as someone finished the race, the game ended and awarded stars to the people who made it the furthest. On the same day that boat racing was removed, Hypixel also removed Horse Race. Horse Race was another racing game, but this time on land. Players had to complete 3 laps around a map while jumping over obstacles. Horse speeds are random in Minecraft, so it can be assumed that Horse Race was removed due to it heavily relying on RNG. Later in 2016, as part of an arcade update, Party Games received a few minor changes. The pig fishing timer was reduced from 90 seconds to 75 seconds, and Hypixel introduced 2 new achievements to Party Games: obtain a score of 250 in Lawnmower, and punch someone in Avalanche. This was the last change Party Games would have in 2 years. On November 13th, 2018, Hypixel devs started the development of a new minigame as part of what they called the Hypixel Jam. It was released on November 26th as Hypixel Sports, accessible through the Party Games NPC. Hypixel announced its release in the Arcade Games forum instead of the usual announcements forums, as Hypixel Sports was meant to be a fun, temporary game. This game only featured 3 minigames: sprint, hurdles, and swimming. The way it worked was simple. Each player controlled a character that moved forward when alternating left click and right click with specific timings. The game was very buggy though, and the characters would often wander off to the side, which people frequently complained about. The game had a star system that worked exactly like Party Games 1, 2, and 3, so the game was also often called Party Games 4. Party Games 4 was never intended to be a permanent game. As Hypixel said, it didn't fit their standard for games, and they wanted players to enjoy the game while it lasted. It was later removed in an update that completely changed party games. "2019 was a year of massive changes for arcade games. On February 13th, 2019, Hypixel merged Party Games 1, 2, and 3 all into one single game just called Party Games. On that same day, sadly, Party Games 4 was removed from the network. Hypixel finally removed Hole in the Wall from Party Games, and the game's legacy lived on in the arcade lobby as its own game. Hypixel also removed Punch the Bats from Party Games, although for a much more mysterious reason. As a result of the big merge, only 23 minigames made it to the new game pool. So how did Party Games work now? Well, Party Games became the game we are all familiar with today. In a pool of 23 games, not 26 yet, 8 games were randomly selected to be played. Party Games also now had only 8 players. Lots of games were completely reworked in this update, and Fire Leapers had the biggest change of them all. Fire Leapers used to be 15 waves of smoke that people jumped over, giving players 1 point for every wave they jumped over. Hypixel changed this by making the game infinite, and players would now die once they jumped in the smoke. To make it harder, of course, the waves went faster and faster over time, making it eventually really hard to react in time. Pig fishing also no longer had a cap, and players could now get as many pigs as possible in 75 seconds. Some games were made shorter. RPG 16 now ended at 90 seconds instead of 2 minutes, but Hypixel forgot to change the timer for 2 years. As a way to make arcade games more competitive, Hypixel also introduced lifetime win leaderboards for every arcade game and your own personal stats NPC in the arcade lobby, and that wasn't all. This arcade update was so large that it was split in 2 parts. The second part of the update added 3 new minigames to the Party Games pool: Dive, Anvil, Spleef, and Super Sheep. Dive is simple. You have 60 seconds to drop down a circular pool of water and get as many points as you can. A block of wool spawns wherever you land, and if you land on wool or any hard block, you don't get a point. Anvil Spleef is another simple game. Players spawn on this square platform and have to avoid raining anvils for as long as they can. When anvils land, they also break the map underneath them, making it so players have to look out for both anvils and the map decaying beneath them. Super Sheep works like Tron. Players spawn on a sheep that's constantly moving forwards, and sheep leave behind them a trail of glass that only gets longer and longer as the game continues. Players die if they hit someone's tail, a wall, or even their own tail. Party Games now had 26 minigames, and is starting to look a lot more like the Party Games we know today. Party Games didn't have a community until May 2020. It started with the periods in our lives that we're all familiar with. Remember COVID? In a time where everyone was stuck at home, a bored leaderboarder by the name of Monkey City 17 created the Party Games community. While the strats weren't very advanced yet, the leaderboard was booming. Grinders like Monkey City 17, Alf31, and Oogie were racing for the #1 spot, breaking milestone after milestone after milestone. But it wasn't until late 2020 that the community started shattering world records left and right. By then, the Party Games community had grown large enough to host world record parties. Parties of 8 players where people have extremely favorable lobbies for world records. This meant 7 players AFKing so 1 person could have a go, or everyone helping, like by hitting chickens to spawn more pigs and cows in animal slaughter. With constant world record parties and the discovery of new strats, people had started shattering milestones, getting 200 points in animal slaughter, 700 points in ho ho ho, and finishing Jigsaw Rush in under 3 seconds. New skips were even being discovered in parkour, with Fubi, now known as SkyPK, coming up with a highly acclaimed Fubi jump. 2021 was a game-changing year for the Party Games community, and not just because of the world records. The 2021 arcade update is the update that made Party Games what it is today. This update brought stat tracking to Party Games. People could now set new personal records and check what their best scores were. Hypixel also started tracking stars earned and rounds won, and along with that, a new tiered achievement, earned 5,000 stars in party games. RPG 16 was shortened again from 90 seconds to 60 seconds to make it more consistent with other games. Fire Leapers was also changed again to now end at wave 50 and give people a tie if multiple people make it that far. Workshop was also updated with a bunch of new crafts, including Piston and Enchantment Table. The biggest change to most minigames was how much the timers were shortened across all the games. 150 seconds to complete Workshop or 120 seconds to complete Spider Maze might seem like a long time, but before the update, both games were 300 seconds, 5 minutes! If someone didn't know how to craft a wood pickaxe or couldn't find their way in Spider Maze, you would have enough time to go insane. All these changes made the game a lot more grindable for everyone, attracting both AP hunters and regular party games players who just want better stats and faster games. This update started a whole new generation of party game sweats. With a game that tracks personal records and that has tons of leaderboards, people were more eager than ever to break world records. And to make that goal easier to reach, the rise of party games practice maps came in at just the right time. The first party games practice map was an improvised Jigsaw Rush map made by Immortalscape in early 2022. It was quite primitive, but it did the job. Shortly after its release, Centillionaire became the first person ever to break the sub-2 barrier on Hypixel, getting a new world record with a time of 1.9 seconds. While practice maps do help, some people go to the extra mile and make their own texture packs, designed to make Jigsaw Rush easier. Cent himself went a bit crazy with the pack, while others went a little easier on it, only changing a block or two. The Jigsaw practice that we know today is on the server hosted by Semisol, which is known for its customizability and its really detailed breakdowns. As you can imagine, Jigsaw Rush quickly became one of the community's favorite games. Workshop is the other community favorite. The first Workshop practice server also came into existence shortly after Jigsaw, helping with the world records as well. The discovery of new meta is what really lowered the world records though. In Workshop, the game actually clears your inventory a second after submitting a craft, not instantly. This allows players to save items in between crafts, which can be a massive time save. If I blew your mind already, that's not all. You see, you can actually access these furnaces, craft a coal block, and store them back into the furnaces all before the game starts. When you do get the coal block craft, all you have to do is access that furnace again and take the coal block out. And when all goes well, you get people like IL who push the limits further than what was thought possible, with times as fast as 21 seconds. Since Workshop was such a community favorite, SkyPK and Blackout Burst designed a custom Workshop server with unique maps and unique crafts. That server is unfortunately discontinued today, but regular Workshop practice is still up. So, what's next? Well, believe it or not, Hypixel has kept updating party games with small shadow updates ever since the 2021 arcade update. They have removed Granite from Workshop in 2022, which used to give Cobblestone, even though this change was never announced. In 2024 so far, they have somehow managed to break Trampolino and fix 3 different games including Dive, which allowed many players to finally get 22 points, and yet, none of these changes were ever announced. I think in the future, Hypixel will keep updating party games through small shadow updates. Party games still needs a lot of bugs to be fixed, so maybe one day they will make a major party games update. But hey, it's not Skyblock, so don't keep your hopes up.